invite to the stage Nadia Pinardi. Nadia Pinardi is professor at the University of Bologna. She's also the director of the UNTK Center for Coastal Resilience, and she's one of the two co-chairs of the Sea Level Rise Knowledge Hub. Nadia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And this talk is done with my co-chair, Dr. Bart van den Hurk from Deltares. And it is just skimming over some topics that I hope will be discussed at large by all the experts present. We have an ambition that we will do something that will bring us forward in the problems that Pierpaolo Campostrini was talking about before. And we have an example, which is a very important example, the working together of two JPIs. This is a very important step. It's something that will be an example, I think, for the future for other JPIs. And it really works. So if there is a topic and there are member states that are really interested, this is pretty much a way forward. So we have a governing council formed by 9 countries and representatives from JPI Ocean and JPI Climate, and they look after the structure of the work that we do. And this is very important for us. This is the start of the change where science gets together to policymakers. We have also expert groups, task groups, we call them. One, a very important one, I don't want to take too much time because it will be already showing examples and results. This is task group 1, co-design, the policy task group, the science task group, and the outreach task group. So we divided our work in these 4 parts. And I think it was rather good choice. We show you the results in the next talk. The facts. So this is the latest show of what is the acceleration in sea level rise given very recently by the State of the Global Climate 2021, published in 2022 WMO report. And as you can see, we're not, we're really, this is global, okay? And we are really facing something that we could have expected, but now we have a strong evidence that is happening. And the problem is, what are the processes that control the local sea level rise for the past and for the future? This is a big challenge. This is global, and as you know, you have lots of data, satellite data, lots of grid points, a lot of less uncertainty. The more you go to the local, more uncertainty. And now we have also this result, that the 100-year sea level extreme, how frequent will be in 2100. And you see here several regions that will be having a 100-year sea level extreme every year instead of every 100 years. How do we prepare for this? This is a projection. This is a model output. But we have to try, but models are becoming good. They are calibrated, validated by the data now. So we have to think about this. So the Knowledge Hub ambition is to promote the exchange, synthesis, and integration and generation of knowledge on regional to local, historical and future sea level rise. So we focus on bringing that evidence, that global evidence, down to the local and co-designing. We need to bridge spatial scales, we know that. We need to bridge disciplines, a lot of them. accelerate the research to operations, because we need early warning systems, we need operational systems that are based on science, and use new science paradigms to arrive at solutions. So the key outcome of the Knowledge Hub on Sea Level Rise is to provide periodic assessments of knowledge on sea level rise drivers, impact, and policy options for each of the major basins around Europe. And we hope in the future many other nations and countries will join the club, bringing the global to the local. We had 4 workshops, very important, where we started the co-design. We started to see where the problems were in each basin, and actually we found they were slightly different. And you will see the results in the next talk. And they were very important. Many experts participated. So the outline of the first assessment report, to be discussed tomorrow by my co-chair more in detail, is the historic and future sea level rise, the impacts, the adaptation policy, and the future outlook. Now, the sea level rise is also, the Knowledge Hub on Sea Level Rise is part of our decade, UN Decade for Ocean Science, and we are very proud that JPI Oceans and Climate submitted the project, which was endorsed under the Coast Predict program. So the final consideration briefly, I think that we are nowadays challenged by the matrix of success that is not anymore to have only more accurate science, but also how to prepare decision makers and public to understand and act. The Knowledge Hub on Sea Level Rise will initiate that process, hopefully, with your agreement and with your expert advice, a practice for continuous stakeholder consultation in order to tailor our knowledge science on sea level rise. And we will try to adapt this to the international assessment programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Nadia. Now you know about the architecture of this of the Knowledge Hub on Sea Level Rise, and José, you may come up. You know about the context as a project of the UN Ocean Decade, and you know a little bit about the ambition, which we will flesh out more during today and tomorrow. Next is José Jimenez. He's a professor in coastal engineering and management at the Universitat Politécnica de Catalunya in Barcelona.
Thank you, Thorsten. Good morning to all of you. So what we are going to present to you, it is the first preliminary results of one of the task groups that Nadia introduced, that this is co-design. For us, for the Knowledge Hub, it's very important not to say what to do or what it is our opinion on sea level rise and the needs, but this is to get the perception of all the stakeholders working in Europe. And this is the objective that we are going to show to you now. It is to profiling the needs and knowledge gaps in sea level rise across Europe, but not from our perspective, but from your perspective. In order to do that, we launched 2 main preliminary actions. One was to launch a survey across Europe. So the idea was to obtain the perception on different questions related to sea level rise on what we call the European sea basins, that we have 6, Mediterranean Sea, Black Sea, Eastern Atlantic, North Sea, Baltic, and Arctic. So the idea is to see if the profile, if we have a unique European profile, or we have several profiles, which are the needs specifically for each basin. It is our main target. So the 3 main questions the question were about 3 blocks. One is about physical sea level rise information. The second one was about the hazard and impacts induced by sea level rise. And finally, we also get the perception of people on adaptation and strategy to deal with. So the survey was launched in January this year. And it still is open, so please, if you have not filled the survey, so go to the Knowledge Hub website, and you can go to the survey, and we'll highly appreciate if you can give and share your expertise on this. So the second action was a series of workshops that was presented by Nadia, where 4 And the workshops were very interactive. So again, it was not like okay, let's go to do some lecture keynote speech. So we have some, but most of the workshop was dedicated to interact with the stakeholder. So we have in about over 50 participants per workshop, and most of the workshop was using the mural, where the people were able to interact between each other and to identify key topics in the 3 different aspects: information, impact, and adaptation. So in the booklet that you have found at the entrance, so you can have a preliminary and very brief conclusion about the workshops. Of course, in the website, so we'll post all the conclusions and the final for the survey and for the workshop, but now you can get a preliminary result. So in the workshop, we joined together 2 basins, in the case of the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, and in the North Sea and the Arctic. So the reason was because we have few participants from the Arctic and the Black Sea, and they were not relevant to have a workshop for them. And we prefer to join in terms of they are pretty close, and also the physics is very similar. So which are the results? So first, which were the profile of the respondents? So we have about 200 participants in the survey. This is a very nice number. So if we go to the back, so you can see the participation per basin. So the 2 most participative basins, most populated, were the North Sea and the Mediterranean. And the 2 ones with the asterisk, the Black Sea and the Arctic. So we have a few respondents. So if you have experience of these basins, so please go to the survey and share your expertise. So if we split, which is the profile of the respondent, so about 1/3 of the respondents were working in the government, regional or central government. And this was very important for us because they are sharing the expertise from the practice, from the government. It's end user stakeholder, not scientists. So here you can see the profile for all the basins. So in the Baltic Sea and the North Sea, we have the largest percentage of people from the government, so the largest percentage of a stakeholder, and they are followed by the Mediterranean Sea in the order of 1/3. In the other one, so we have a lower percentage of the stakeholder, but still, in total, it is 1/3. It's a very nice number. So which is the main focus of the people? So many people were involved in coastal management, coastal risk assessment, in adaptation, modeling. So we have a relative wide profile covering most of the actions related to sea level rise. So we have few responded from the ecological standpoint, but from the physical and from the, let's say, engineering and policy making. So we have a nice profile, overall profile. So the first question is, okay, do you feel that there is something missing in the data that you have in order to deal with your work on sea level rise? So, of course, so the majority say yes, but there is a warning. About the 30% of the people say that they still miss something about data. So we have a huge amount of data rallying in everywhere, but still there are people that in the world, so they feel that they need additional data. So here you can see this is the response from the government in the right-hand side, in the left is from academia. And here, for instance, in the Mediterranean, about the 50% from the government say that they still miss some information. So the most, let's say, optimistic people from the administration were people from the Baltic. We have only 10% of people saying that we miss information, but still, so what type of information they miss? So in some cases, though, the most, let's say, common keyword was regional sea level rise projection. So everybody has projection, but many people identify the local projections are very important for the usual work, and they miss this information in some cases. Also, the people were aware that they need information about uncertainty. So these are, if we have to identify something, so these are the most important items that were identified by people, especially stakeholders, to do the job. So we also asked about what type of information do you have access and what type of information do you use? Of course, so they find access to everything. So projection from tidal record, global projection, regional. So the most frequent was global projection. And the most used was also global projection. So we have a, let's say, outlier that was the Baltic that said that the most used were regional projection. But instead, have an asterisk, so the responded were relatively low, but they say that the most used was regional. That is logical because in the Baltic, so probably let's say the global projection has not too much meaning, so you have to go very local. So also we ask people about the type of information, they say that regular updates of sea level rise are needed. So then it is not enough to say, okay, we have a projection for the future. We need to maintain an update of this projection in order to let the people to be confident with this. And also, all the people, here you have, identify that this is important or very important to know the uncertainty in the projection. So we need to give an update, and we need to also to give some bounds to the uncertainty included in the projection. So this is identified by people, not by us. So then it is a real need for the future. So then we move from information on sea level rise to impact. So here you have, this is the overall answer for the people. So we identify some impact, and they can take any impact that they identify that is relevant for the side. This is the overall for the academia and for the government. So it is almost the same. It is not equally, because if we go to the government, the people working in the government increase the importance of the ecological impact with respect to the people working in the academia. So probably because the profile of people responding from the academia were more from physical oriented than ecological oriented, but people working in the government say, okay, it's relevant, the sea level rise also for the ecology. And here on the right-hand side, so here we have the different basins, and here we have the different impacts. And here you have the scale, that this is the percentage of impact identified by people from 0 to 1. 1 is 100% of the people identified. If we have a unique profile for impacts in Europe, all the lines will have the same color, and they are not. So then we have a different profile in terms of impact. So then if we want to do this, so we have to be very clear that the assessment report have to cover the different basins from the impact standpoint, because the people identify different importance. So the most important or the most identified impact for people is not inundation, it's not a storm, it's erosion. So then we talk about inundation, flooding, blah, 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 but the people say that the most important impact is erosion, with the exception of the Arctic. So the Arctic say that for them it's not important. So it's a good survey, because it's true. So then, but if we go to the other ones, for instance, salinization, so we have several basins where salinization is a very important item, but in others it's not. So then again, so we have a very different profile that now we are able to get a first impression just looking to this. So we also identify here some other impacts that were not included, but are very much related to what Pier Paolo presented. One of the impacts identified by people to need to take into account is impact on cultural heritage. And the second one is coastal pollution that was not included. So here Pier Paolo said that if we close the moats very much, so the residence time in the lagoon will be worse, so then this will impact on coastal pollution. So of course, this is not the impact that the people identify, but also coastal pollution, especially also for industrial water and so on, that with sea level rise will have an increase on this. But of course, so we identify the important, we identify the spatial variance on this. So if we have the impact, so okay, we ask the people, do you have high quality impact assessment related to sea level rise? Here we have the disagree, so the people miss high quality, up-to-date impact assessment. So it is a relatively large percentage of people missing this. In terms of academia, are much more pessimistic than people working in the government. About 40% of the people of the academia identify, oh, no, we don't have high quality and up-to-date. In the case of stakeholders, so that we have it. This is 30%. That's much more optimistic. So again, we have a similar profile for all of Europe. So the most pessimistic, let's say people working in the administration, were people working in the East Atlantic. And the most, let's say, optimistic were, again, people working in the Baltic. So maybe they have a very good impact assessment, or they trust on the assessment itself. So also we ask, which are the, let's say, the policy decision we move from impact to policy adaptation and strategy that we are not currently considering sea level rise, but you've seen that need to be included. So these are the key topics that people say we are not including sea level rise like a element, but we need to include. It is river flood management, urban planning, and water management and ecosystem management. Of course, so this is reflecting the personal and the particular view of each responder, but we can get an overall picture for this. So then, regarding this, we asked all the countries are implementing adaptation strategy and policy. How effective are they? So again, so the people are pessimistic with the current strategy. This is logical because many of the strategies are starting. So they are not implemented some time ago, they are starting. So then the people are, since that still they are not effective. So we are in the order of 50%, 40% that say that this is not very effective. So if we go to here, so the most pessimistic place for the effectivity of these adaptation plans are the Mediterranean, where we are. So. And then we also ask is, do you feel that these strategies are flexible? The other one was effective, and now it is flexible, because we are, all of us are thinking that the situation will be worse. So are our adaptation plan flexible enough? So again, we are pessimistic. About the 40% of the people thinks, and this is the same for the academia and the government, that say that they are not flexible enough in order to cope with variation in sea level rise and impact. So finally, to give you a brief summary about this, so the survey and the workshop have allowed us to profile the needs and knowledge gap. And in fact, this is one of the results, that with the result of the survey and the workshop, so we have helped to plan this conference and also to help to design the assessment report that will be delivered at the end. So we have obtained different views and perception between the stakeholder and the area. So we don't have a single European profile, and this is very important to be included in the assessment report. We cannot have a single assessment report for Europe, so we have to include this spatial variation. In spite of the huge amount of information that we have in sea level rise, people still identify some gaps for the day-by-day work, and it is important in order to develop the adaptation plan and to implement a strategy. And of course, that the current adaptation plan strategy, the current, have significant doubts for people in terms of effectiveness and flexibility. So just to finalize, I would like to acknowledge to all participants in the survey, all participants in the workshop, to Lavinia and Michael at the end, because without their help, so the workshop and this cannot be done. And to all of you, and please, if you can go to the website to participate in the survey, so we'll highly appreciate. And stay tuned, because we are going to produce a report to be posted in the website, and also a paper compiling all the results. Thank you for your attention. I hope that this helped.
Thanks a lot, José Jimenez, for those insights also into the work behind the scenes. Thanks a lot, José. And I also want to remind about the booklet that José was alluding to. This is what you received. You have some of the results of the workshops in there. So, Tristan, do we have time for some questions from the audience?
I think we actually have. If there's one question,
Any questions?
Spontaneously of someone. If not, I would ask Lavinia, who's busy there, whether in Slido there's something. I think it's really busy. So, you want to ask a question? Okay, so I give you your microphone.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. My name is Giovanni Cecconi. I am a linkman of the local community on adaptation to sea level rise. And by the way, we are thinking about the future of the flood barrier in case of an extreme. And I agree with the survey completely. There is no idea what to do after life, after Mose, the afterlife of Mose. And if you want to discuss, please visit the poster. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think it was a real question. Do you want to answer somehow or respond?
So if I answer, so I will give you my personal opinion, because I only reflect the opinion of all the people. So I am very proud that the survey is reflecting one of your views, because this was the objective. So then, so please share with the people that are in the room in order to discuss your problem, probably during the poster. But I prefer to don't give your opinion here in order to all the people to let, but I will give you in the poster. But we appreciate that this, and of course, we'll appreciate if you go to the survey.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the question and also for the reaction. We have another question. We can take one more question, maybe. Would you like to come up to the microphone to ask your question, and then also say whom you would like to ask the question to.
Yeah, I'm Giovanni Coppini from CMCC. I would like to ask to the second speaker, José, about, I see in the questionnaire that beach erosion is one of the most highlighted impact. But how much, in your opinion, it counts the fact that beach erosion is an impact that is visible to the public, while extreme events and flooding, being extreme event very localized, somehow are less, if we are not trained, if we are not educated as citizens, then the perception of risk will be less evident. So that's...
Probably you are true, but the coastal erosion that we are now looking every day is not due to sea level rise, it's due to the current processes. So the only difference is that if you are in the Mediterranean and you are in Marina de Pizza, Marina di Massa, where the beach has disappeared, you say, oh my God, this is an impact. And if the people say that with sea level rise, this will worse. So everybody, especially in areas where the tourist is very important, and Mediterranean is one of these areas, so we'll be very much worried about the disappearance of the beaches because it's about the 10% of the GNP. So this is something for the future for this. But if we talk on inundation, so if you go to other places, probably Netherlands, in the Baltic, or everywhere, say, okay, this is very important. So this is what we are looking here. And also, you say erosion, if you have sand, so everybody will be worried about the disappearance of sand, not for tourists, if I am Dutch. So my coast is protected by a dune and a beach. If the beach disappears, so I have to change all my coastal protection structure. So then, if you have sediment and all the people are transmitting you that sea level rise is inducing erosion, so it's logical to identify this. So for me, it is not due to that you see every day. So I think that the perception of the society is that beaches are important, not only for tourists, but also for protection. So then we are starting to recognize the functions that beaches play in our life.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think we will not really have time for questions from the online.